Hello, folks. This is Shippy the Explorer, your tour storyteller, and your vlogger, and your genealogy content person and writer. And welcome back to Shippy the Explorer, the medium that gives you an unusual entertainment. And we has said it's night now, and you can see that it's in the background. It's the electrical light, and you know that it's somewhat of a night wherever I'm at. So welcome, and especially my friends who have subscribed and returned faithfully to this station to listen to these stories and see what kind of material Shippy the Explorer is getting into. So as you see the light, electrical light, we are embarking tonight on a story time again when electrical light was not around. Those were the days. And when they finally came and when they put the electrical lights on the street, there's people used to walk on the street and say, moon pan stick. I don't know what you're saying in the parts of the Caribbean, but in Jamaica, that's what they said. Moon pan stick, my God. But it was an enlightened way to see that finally hydroelectricity had come. But before hydroelectricity, we had the buckle torch, where you put the kerosene in the bottle, man, and you put the wheat down in the bottle, you light it. And you had some people, if they are really poor, they had bamboo torch, and then the persons who had a little bit more money, they came up with their lamps. And I'm gonna show you one of the lamps, really. Excuse me a second. I should have brought it over. Yes, this is a good example of a lamp, and we still keep it. Excuse the shade. The shade doesn't have home sweet home on it anymore because we don't have that here. But this, if we have electricity, if electrical light goes out, we do have this lamp. And so these lamps used to be, the shade used to say home sweet home. And you were responsible, the young kids were responsible to take the newspaper and clean those shades, man, in the evening, and make sure that kerosene was in the lamp. And also, then when you're clean, after you clean it, you turn the wick up, and you cut off that burnt section and make it afresh. And then you would have lovely light for most of the night. So, what happened in those days? Nowadays, the young people they have computers and they're in their own room and all that. But in the old days, most of us used to gather in one room, mother, father, and sister and brother, and we all pile up, maybe sometimes on one bed, but sometimes in two beds, in the same room. But as the night came down and the chickens, they go to roost, and the darkness came down around the neighborhood, what was the entertainment? But here we go. It's a storytelling now. Before the night came down, man, we were required to go outside in the tank, the cistern, and gather some water in the wash basin, and we were supposed to just wash our face and hand and our foot. No bathing at the night. You just wash up. And then after you dry up, you come inside and we gather around the table with the lamp, kerosene lamp with the home sweet home. And 3, 4, 5, 6 of us sometimes, and then maybe the father. But sometimes the mother doesn't gather. She sits to the side and stays. And a lot of us grew up with our grandparents. So grandfather was the one around giving, say, let's gather. It's story time. And grandmother was, sit aside. And so we started out, with story time, and those stories came before the stories. Really, sometimes you have, what do? We have had dinner, and but still yet we were hungry. So what our grandmother would do is they put on the pot and they boil some tea, and then you get some sugar inside of it, and each person had their own mug, and you had maybe a plain sweetened tea, maybe mint or lemon leaf and something like that, or fever grass. And then if they had the amenities, they would give us a slice of bread. And then in the richer homes, you would be getting maybe your Milo and your Horlicks and your cocoa. No coffee for the young folks. And you gather around. And then sometimes if you don't have bread and you are poor, then you were outside in the open fireplace roasting the corn. And you roast the whole horse corn until and you burn one side and you burn the next side until the whole thing is finished. And then you all come in with 1 or 2 corn and you break it, and then you share that up, and each person would probably have one half of a corn. And then as the storage time started, you would be heating your corn as it goes along. And then what was the entertainment? A lot of times it seems like we had taken the tradition from Africa, and up until now I think we still do have some of the customs and ways of Africa, because we had came away with the Nancy story, and we talk about ANANCY and Brother Takuma and Brother Dog. And those stories, when I discovered, I'll tell you a story. After years of migrating and traveling with a Ghanaian guy to work, one morning I was talking about the whole days of ANANCY and Brother Takuma. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, you know those stories too?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Oh yeah, those are my stories." I said, and then I asked him back. I said, "You know those stories?" He said, "Yes, we grew up with those Brother ANANCY stories." He was from the Akan region in Ghana. And it seems like the Akan, they had that story. But mainly Ghana, because when you go to Ghana, in the Accra region and up in the Akan region, you see the strong, they depict a lot of stories and imagery around Brother ANANCY. So ANANCY is very important in the Ghanaian culture. So we had taken that with us. We had adopted some of that in the old days. But I don't know if the stories if they have evolved or they changed, because when we were growing up, we talk about Brother ANANCY. One story is that Brother ANANCY and Brother Takuma, I think um, they were friends, and Brother Takuma didn't have, I think it's Brother Takuma did not have any clothes, so Brother Nancy lent Brother Takuma his clothes. And they went to the dance, and Brother Takuma was dancing with all the girls, man. And then Nancy got jealous, and Nancy said, when he wasn't getting any girl, so he said, Takuma, give it back me. It could be Brother Dog or one of them, but it's one of them. It's Brother Nancy and one of them. Don't remember the story. He says, give me back my shirt. And he had to take off his shirt and give Brother Nancy. And then Brother Takuma, I'm going to use Brother Takuma. Brother Takuma was dancing still with the girls, man. And then getting all the girls and Nancy not getting it. And Nancy got more jealous and said, give me my pants. And he had to take off the pants and give it back to Nancy. And so it happened that Nancy demanded all the clothes that he had lent to that other character. And so he was left naked. And so he had to run away to the dance. And then Nancy had all the girls for himself. Hold a second. So we come to story time, folks. I was mumbling around the other stories about Nancy, and but there's one story that I would like to tell, because I think I remember most of it, all the gist of the story, and that was Nancy and his family, his wife and his 12 kids. And this will show you how Nancy is really cunning and smart. So here's the story. And you'll notice that it's a daybreak because we had a blackout last night. So if you see the difference, then you know that I come back to you on this day with the lighted of the hour to tell a story. So Nancy had 12 kids and he is married. And Nancy would, well, you say Nancy, Anancy would come home each day, and the wife would said, Papa Nancy, I would like to share out your dinner, and he says, no, my wife, share out the picnic them one first, you know. And then the wife would go around and she shared 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right up to 12 dinners in the little plates and the aluminum plates. And Nancy sit down there, quietly and watch his wife share the dinner. And then she would share out, and he would say, oh, I'm not hungry, but just give me a little piece. Give me a little bit of the food. Make the pit them have the food now. You share out for them and give me a little, man. And Nancy, after she shared out the kids' meal, and Nancy was there looking, and he got his little dish with his little plate of little food in it, and then he starts to eat. But then this is a cunning Anancy. You know what he did? He went to the first child and said, "Make me taste how your food if it tastes better than mine," you know. And he took a mouthful of child one, and then he moved to the next child and taste that child's food. Then he moved to the next, and he moved to the next. And before you know it, Nancy had gone to all 12 kids. And guess what? Now he had enough taste and enough things to his belly was puffed up, and he was almost full. So then he sat down now and finished his small portion. And so when you look at Nancy, he was robust and puffed up and looking fat. And, and so his kids had given him a taste of all from their plates, and now they had gotten a little bit less, and Nancy had cumulatively gotten all that meal. And then he looks around and he was satisfied that he think now he was the smartest folk in town. And so that's the cunning of Nancy. That's the cunningness of the creature. And the folklore was right, that he was the smartest folklore in Africa and the Ghanaian region. And so when you go at the museum, you would see there's a large image of ANANCY just spreading across the ceiling. And each person you talk to, they know about the cunningness of ANANCY. And when Miss Lou used to, I think when she used to finish these stories, she said, "Ay, ay, ay." And that's the story. So we have squeezed in this bit of story for you and show you that the African culture had come along with us. It has descended from our ancestors, and now we have it. But we are afraid. We're afraid that this generation might be losing it. So, if you think your kids like folklore, go out and get the books or the videos and read. Ay, ay, ay. Stay tuned for more as we continue. Yes, so we're back with the story about Nancy and Brer Takumane and Brer Dog. And then there's another story about Brer Nancy and Brer Dog. Brer Dog was so craven that he ate all the food. And then Brer Nancy got so jealous of him, he just hold him and squeeze out like all the food. And so they said that's how Brer Dog ended up with the dent in his stomach. And so those stories were told by us around the lampshade, around the home sweet home kerosene lamp. You know? And then if we don't have Anancy stories, then you would go on to the ghost stories. And ghosts in Jamaica was called Duppy. Before we go on, we talk about, here's a book about Nancy Make It by Peter Saul. So we went on to the Duppy stories, man. And there was one famous Duppy stories that they told us that if you walk through the night, late at night, and you saw you were going around the corner and you saw the shadow of the Duppy just start to wave, and it's wave, and it's so unusual that the waving always take place at night during the moonshine. And guess what? When you think you saw and you see that thing waving and waving, your heart leaped with you and you got scared. If you with somebody, you hold on tight. But as you walk closer to the scene, then you realize it was a banana tree and the leaf was just waving in the breeze. And so, but then we had the story of the rolling calf with the chain. And you know, there's a story about then the rolling calf would would be released late at night, always around 12 or just after 12 at night. And then if you can't sleep, you'll hear that chain jangling, jingling, jangling, or shaking along the road, on the stone road. Chick, 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 chick. You think that rolling calf is coming for you. Yes. And then another famous one was about the headless horseman. And the headless horseman, I think there's a story in the one of the British story books that talks about the headless horseman. And when the headless horseman, he would decide to ride at night. And when you see the horse coming, galloping along the road, and when you look, you see just the body and no head. But the horse would be moving like lightning. And so, whoever is telling the story, whether grandfather, or cousin, or brother, or sister, the rest of us are scared like dickens. So, those were the entertainment at night. And that's in the old days. You didn't have no thing called, computers way ahead, way years to come. But sometimes we would, if you are rich enough, you would have a radio, and you would listen to the story on the radio. And then certain nights, I'm not sure remembering if it was Thursday night or Wednesday night, one of those nights, you would have the Louise Bennett Coverley stories, and she and Ronnie Williams would be rocking up a storm. And every night I would remember, I think Miss Lou would beat Ronnie, and he would say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Miss Lou would be slapping with the flatboard. And that was a story back then. But if you do that now, you would think it's called abuse. Ronnie Williams and Louise Bennett with the flatboard. But we gathered around the radio, and we listened. For those of us who had the ability the family who had the ability to buy a radio. And then at certain times, those same radios, they would broadcast the boxing of maybe Sonny Liston and all these big brown bombers from the United States to tell you how the boxing shows were going on, and how these boxers were bombing against each other, just banging against each other, and you draw your head close to the radio. And then in the morning, in the early morning, if you have cricket, then that's another thing. You'll have cricket, you'll have to get up, and cricket is, say, playing in Australia and New Zealand. You'll get up early in the morning, or maybe 3 o'clock, and you sat around the radio and you listen to the cricket scores for hours, until when school time, that's the time you want to sleep. But going back to the nights, the dark nights with the lamp, with the home sweet home lamp, you'll be sitting around the lamp, man, and after the stories, they would end, I remember, often they would end with the prayer. And you want to end with a prayer, because if you don't, you think that the duppy or the ghost or the bad spirit will come over you, overcome you, and you want the spirit of God or Christ to protect you. And so, after you sing a song And maybe somebody would read a passage, you would say the Lord's Prayer, and then you're ready to go to bed. And what is a bed? Remember, you're in one room. And what is the bed made of? Kaya. Kaya mattress. The one, you remember? The one that sends up the prickles up through the cloth. And as you roll and sleep and so, the prickle would just stick you in your side. The kaya would be just sticking you left and right all night. But if you're really tired, you're not getting up, only for the bathroom. And that brings up another thing. You want to go to the bathroom late at night. I'm not going to afraid to say it. You either have what they call under the bed a chimney, and I'm going to show you another one, another instrument. And here we are, Shippy the Explorer, have another type of, and if you can tell me what this is, you're good. But since you don't know, I'm going to tell you, it's a male urinal. But the chimney was an aluminum container, just similar to this, and it was like a pan, and then you use, if you want to use the bathroom, you'd use the chimney and you slide it back under the bed until morning when you dispose of it. But if you don't want to do that, you have to take the buckle torch and you trackle 50 feet out into the yard, the backyard, where the pit toilet was. And there, you use the bathroom with your heart in your mouth, because you're looking out for more duppy or ghosts. You're hearing the patus and the night owls screeching, and you think they're also enemies. You're looking in the toilet and you see the cockroaches crawling up and down, and you don't want to sit on that box. What a rough life that was. Very unusual. But you come back after you finish and you wash your hands and you clean yourself up, you crawl back into bed and you start fighting again with the Kaya mattress. But if it's 3 or 4 of you inside there on that bed, then oftentimes you are warm. You're warm and comfortable to a certain extent. Yes, those were the days. Yeah, those were the days of dealing with the darkness of the night. So we have come a long way from the 40s and 50s and 60s. Most people, but some, if you're very poor and in certain poor condition, you may have your kerosene lamp still. You may not have electricity, but it's very rare these days. Most people in most of the countries, they do have this electricity. So they're able to crawl, go up to the side and switch and get the light on. And most people have never seen the Kaya mattress. You don't know what that is. But if you're of substantial age, you will do remember those days. And so Shippy the Explorer is triggering off the minds of the whole and telling the young ones, you need to appreciate your electricity. You need to appreciate your running water in the house. You need to appreciate the your warm bed with either cotton interior or the sponge interior. And some of you are fancy, you have your water bed and your hair mattresses. And you don't remember what granny or grandfather went through. Because those days are long gone and they did not tell you that they went through all of that. But Shippy the Explorer is old enough and young enough to find myself in a transitional period where I'm going when I saw all these things back then, and I can relate. And now I can tell the story and remind you that what happened. Now, back in the old days where we have what they call dark night. And I don't really know what time of the year that occurs or what time of the season of the moon or the cycle of the moon but there is no moon. The stars seem to be a distant way away. And believe it or not, you don't have electricity and you're walking the street at night and you push your hands out. And believe it or not, you cannot see your fingers. You cannot see your hand because dark night is over the land. And when you have dark night is when it seems like the duppies or the ghosts, it seems that they roam, because that's when the stories feel more pungent. The stories feel more urgent. You don't want to venture out in that dark. You make sure you come home as soon as possible, as a cock or the roosters that climb up to the roof, the tree. They go to roost, you go to bed into the house too. And you lock the door because you are afraid. Yes? So, enjoy the beauty of modern day amenities. Just implore you, enjoy them. And the kids who are having their computers and all that, your own iPad and your radio, some of you are using the radio or so to listen to the television. I appreciate it, because when your kids or your grandkids grow up, I'm sure technology will be changing, will be evolving. And they will look back on those days, your days, as the old days, and said, you had a rough time. But right now, these days, with our computers and electricity and running water and television and a roof over our head, a feather mattress or hair mattress, we are somewhat in luxury. So, Shipping the Explorer is just reminding you tonight, stay clear of the duppies. If you can get a hold of the Nancy stories to read to your kids, have them read it, you can procure them. I'm sure each country, each island or country has its own stories, folklore stories. Try to get some of those and let the kids read some of them so that they can be reconnected with whatever African culture their forefathers came from. So, it's a short story tonight. I say thanks for listening. Thanks for enjoying it. Thanks for sharing it. And do, if you like, do subscribe to this station. So next time, look out for another story as Shippy the Explorer explore old time stories that come to Bob. Talk to you. Take care. Walk good.